Hey friend, welcome to my channel. My name is Mandy, the Handmade Homeschooler, and today I'm going to be answering some of your questions about anchor charts. I've talked about anchor charts in a couple of my other videos, and I seem to always get dozens of questions on anchor charts. So I thought I would take this video and just answer some of the most commonly asked questions that I'm getting about anchor charts and how I use them, why I use them, what do you do with them, that type of thing. If you're new to my channel, I want to welcome you. Make sure that you hit the like and the subscribe button, and down below in the description box I will have a link to our free Christian Facebook group, and I also will have a link to the anchor charts that I use on Amazon, the ones that I purchase. Okay, so let's talk about what an anchor chart actually is. What is an anchor chart? An anchor chart is like a very large poster, basically. Kind of like what we call an infographic in the marketing world. Maybe you know what an infographic is on social media, or if you've ever worked in any type of marketing or anything like that. It's basically like charts and information and pictures all together that is relevant to a certain topic. Now you can make an anchor chart for literally anything. I've seen people make math anchor charts when they're teaching fractions. I have seen anchor charts on geography, and I've seen them on like a specific country, and then they have like a ton of cool information about like a specific country on this big anchor chart. Anchor charts are on a large pad of paper. So it's like a really giant pad of paper, and I'm going to show you what it looks like here in a second. And a lot of different whiteboards will have attachments where you hang up your big anchor chart. And that's what I use. My whiteboard, it's not the best one, it's not my favorite, but we're making it work for what we need it to do. And there are like little hooks where we hook up this big pad of paper, and we can use the anchor chart that way. So it's really hard to get on camera this entire sheet, but this is one for an upcoming module that we'll be doing next week in our science class. And I just want you to understand like how simple this actually is. Personally, I like to go for simple, although you can make these as complicated as you need them to be. But I don't think that these need to be hard, and from my experience with my son, the simpler it is, the better. I like to do lots of fill-in-the-blank questions. I like to do notes, like kind of like bullet points of certain things and certain concepts. And I want you to think about it in the way of, if I was taking this class and I was taking notes on the most important things, what would I write down? And that's typically what I do on here, so my son can see how somebody would take notes for his class. And I like to go over some of the things that are on the test and put those on the board. Now, I don't put the test questions word for word on the board or anything like that, but I have those concepts up there. So if he's going to be tested on certain vocabulary words, you're going to believe that they're going to be up here on this anchor chart, so we can go over them, we can discuss them, and it can kind of get reinforced in his brain. So here is 3 bullet points on different pursuits. Here's different life science type of vocabulary words. We have one that's like a bolded sentence in there. And then we also have, like on the next page, I have different pictures on the bottom. I know you can't really see them well here, but like he's going to be learning about age testing and carbon dating and things like that. And then I have pictures of like different soil layers, because we're going to be talking about the different layers in the soil. And I just printed them out on the computer and just put them up here on the board. This is something that I try not to spend too much time on, because we have limited time and brain space, but it is something that actually does help, and a lot of times having a visual of those things helps as well. So you can see just kind of what this looks like. I like the paper that has the lines on it. It makes it a lot easier, more organized for me. And usually with each concept, I have it written in a different color so I can kind of group things together in an organized manner. A lot of people just use a regular whiteboard for this type of stuff. I like anchor charts because it won't get erased and I can use it for as long as I need to, and I have like an endless supply of this paper, so I don't have to worry about running out of space because my whiteboard is not very big and I teach multiple classes, and if I want to have multiple anchor charts, I would have to erase one to make a new one, and I would have to do that in the middle of the day and it would just be a mess. And I just like having it pre-made, pre-done, and you know, I can just kind of tear it off and go as I need to. So what do we put on anchor charts? This is entirely up to you, and it's going to depend on what you're teaching. So I'm going to use our Apologia Science as an example here because that's really what I'm using anchor charts for most right now in my classroom. And I'm going through the reading, and when I go through the reading, I've mentioned this notebook before, but this is my notes notebook, and I basically take notes as I'm doing the reading for the class, and I do this ahead of time. So like every weekend I'll crack open the books and I will just start taking notes, and in my brain I'm already thinking about what I want to put on an anchor chart. And that's basically what these notes are, is any important information within the reading material that I might want to put on an anchor chart or that I need to remember. And that's really what anchor charts are about, is teaching the concepts that the kids are reading in their material and then using that material to have discussions, do test prep, all kinds of things, or even like test out their comprehension of what they just read. And I do all three. So basically what I'll do is I will get out the book, I will start the reading, and then I will start taking notes as I'm reading, kind of the same way that I did in college. You know, I'm reading the material for the class and then I'm just writing down the material. Anything that I think is going to be important is going to go on this anchor chart. So things like vocabulary words, especially sentences that are bolded, because those are usually on the test, right? So anything that's going to be a test question. And here is a tip for you on that. One of the things that I do is I get out their test booklet, the one with the answers in it, and I go over everything in that module that is going to be on the test. And when I see those things, I'm going to put them on the anchor chart so I can teach the concepts that are important, because whatever they're going to be tested on is the most important thing that they're probably supposed to take out of the reading and out of that class. So it's just, you know, common sense to think, okay, the test material is the most important thing, so I'm going to make sure that the test material is on the anchor chart. And that's going to help them remember those things, and it's going to help their grades. So how do I use these anchor charts? We have a certain order that we typically go in for, let's say, our science class. So what I do is, while my child is doing a class or two before he gets to science, I get out his books, I go over the material real quick, I go over the material in my notebook and on my anchor chart. I make sure I have the right anchor chart up for the day, and I usually label them too because it just makes them a little bit easier. And then when it's time for his class, after I've already kind of refreshed my memory on what we're learning for the day, I have him do the reading. And then when he's done with the reading of the text, we basically come back together and we go over the chart, and I teach the material, I teach the class. So then we just kind of have a discussion about everything we read. So I will go over the important parts of the anchor chart. And one of the things that I do to kind of test to make sure he comprehended everything that he needed to and that he understood the lesson, you know, comprehension skills are important. So, and I want him to know that I'm kind of keeping up with him, and that way he knows, like, okay, I need to pay attention to this reading because mom might ask me this question. what I'll do is I will have fill in the blank type of questions on my anchor chart. And I will give him the marker and I will say, okay, what should go in this blank here? And I will read the sentence out loud with the blanks and then he will fill it in. So it's like an interactive thing that we do together. So we just kind of go over the anchor chart together and we see all the important things that I pulled out of the reading. And a lot of times he's making his own notes too in his notebook, and he can kind of compare and contrast, like, did I take the same kind of notes that mom did for this class? Did we think the same things were important? Why or why not? And it's one of those things that kind of helps them learn how to do the note-taking skills. And I think that that's one thing that kids sometimes don't learn in homeschooling is note-taking skills. So I like classes like this where I can really reinforce those concepts because, you know, when they get to college, they are going to have to know how to take notes, and they're going to have to do it in real time while the professor is talking. So this is one of those things that, you know, it's good practice to get going when they're young, and that way they're a pro at it by the time they're in high school. One of the things that I like to do is I also like to print out pictures, and sometimes it's the same pictures that are in the book and sometimes they're totally different pictures. I try to get different pictures than what's in their textbook. So in one of the lessons recently, they were learning about different scientists and things like that, and one of the scientists made like this anatomy book. And so I looked up the anatomy book and printed out some of the pictures that were in this book because there was only like one picture, I think, from this book in his actual textbook because textbooks only have so much space. And I printed out some additional pictures so he could see, you know, more of the book and things like that. And, you know, it's really neat because we get to kind of explore other things that are within the text. And you can kind of go on a rabbit trail if you want on different concepts like that. Again, anchor charts, you can use them however you want to. There are just endless possibilities of how to use these. So if you want to use them to go on a different journey within your reading, you can totally do that and learn a different concept. I like to kind of reinforce the concepts that are already being taught and things like that. But, you know, I've seen teachers do all kinds of really cool things with these charts. Now, you do not need to make these fancy. And I think that sometimes people get intimidated when they see that I make these charts. These are not fancy at all. I basically just have this giant pad of paper and Crayola markers, and I'm just writing out vocabulary words and test questions and things like that just to make sure that my child understands the material and that we're having a good productive discussion on the material that he read. And I'm basically testing his comprehension skills on the material as well, because some of these classes are a bit advanced. You know, Apologia Science, when you start getting to those higher middle school grades and high school grades, Apologia can get pretty difficult. So having an anchor chart and making sure that you're going over the material together really helps your child's understanding of the material. And I have seen my child kind of flourish in these classes that I'm doing the anchor charts in versus the ones that he's just doing on his own. There's a lot of good discussions that come out of these types of things. So I really enjoy making the anchor charts, and you know, I've asked him his opinion on it, and he actually really likes this too. He doesn't feel like, you know, he's having redundant information at all. You know, that was one of the things I asked him. And he said no, that he actually really enjoys it and he feels like he has a better understanding of it after we go over the material together. So, you know, just some notes from a 7th grade kid on the concept of anchor charts. He really enjoys it, and we did it all last year with his Apologia Physics and Chemistry course, and that was a lot of fun. And when I do this type of stuff, I feel like I am definitely learning so much along with him. And I feel like I'm also taking the class, you know, when I'm teaching it. So it's one of those things that, you know, it also helps me understand the material too, because I'm writing down these concepts. You know, it's helping me remember it because I'm writing it down. And, you know, I think it's really good for us to be involved as parents in these classes. So I have really enjoyed it. and he really enjoys it. And anchor charts, really, it's what you make of it. You can make these as simple or as complex as you want to, and you can do them for any subject. You could do them on people, on places, on math concepts and equations. There's so many things that you can do. It just takes a little bit of imagination. So hopefully you have a better idea of what I do with these anchor charts, and maybe you want to try these out in your homeschool. I like to get the ones that have the lines on them because I mainly use them for writing and not drawing. And I think it looks much neater when I have the lines. All right, hopefully this answered some questions for you. I know anchor charts are kind of like a newer concept probably to most homeschoolers. It's something that I learned when I was teaching in the classroom, and it's kind of one of those things that I just kind of like carried into my homeschool a little bit, and we have actually really enjoyed it. I really like making them. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of like a little bit of a creative outlet for me as a parent. I'm one of those like creative type of people. I like to have my little projects and things like that. So it's really fun to get to do something like that. And when I see that it is actually helping my son, it totally makes it worth it. All right, guys, I will see you in the next video. I hope you have a great rest of your day and happy homeschooling.